Yeah, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are joining by someone who has spent decades with solving the kinds of software problems that most developers only encounter once or twice in a career. Miguel Castro is a senior .NET engineer, a software architect, consultant, and international conference speaker, and one of Microsoft's most respected voices in application architecture and extensibility design. Through his career, he built communication platform, cloud SDKs, AI-powered voice transcription systems, automation platforms, and enterprise applications that have powered business for years. His specialty isn't simply writing code, it's designing systems that continue working as requirements evolve, technologies change, and business grow. If you ever wonder why some enterprise applications become impossible to maintain while other seems to evolve effortlessly, today's conversation is for you. We'll explore extensibility, software architecture, Azure AI, automation, developer productivity, clean design, and what great architecture is often invisible. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, where did your journey into software development begin?
Oh boy, that would give away how old I am, wouldn't it? I don't
Yeah.
uh, I don't know if we want to give away my age, but yeah, no. I mean, I don't want to turn it into a really long story. Though I do enjoy talking about it, but I've been programming since I was 12. Um,
Okay.
so back in the days of, I mean, my first computer was a Radio Shack TRS-80, and then I went into a Atari 800, and then Apple, and
Mm.
I come from those days, you know what I mean?
Uh, 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 um, what organal or what attract you to .NET?
Well, I've been in the Microsoft spaces for a very long time. I moved into the Microsoft spaces with VB, like most programmers do, actually. When VB1 first came out a long time ago, I was just fascinated by the idea of drag and drop GUI design and putting events behind it, which was, back then, it was something new, of course, and it just became fascinating, and I got into it like a lot of people that are listening right now. You get into it as a hobby first, and then it turns into a career. Now, I was already doing computer programming outside of the Microsoft arena from '86 all the way to I would guess 90, 89, 90, just before Microsoft entered the DB spaces. And so I wasn't new to programming and logic and stuff like that. But that was my gateway from my old world into the world of Microsoft, and I've been in that world since then. I've never gone another direction. So I've progressed through the same way Microsoft has progressed its products. I've My career has progressed parallel with all the products that Microsoft kept releasing.
Yeah, you stay a long time in enterprise software development. What is the difference from your starting and today?
Well, we got a new competitor to deal with, of course, and it's got no face, unfortunately. I'm talking about AI, of course.
Mm.
That's the primary reason today, like really currently today. But just over the years, I would have to give that a lot of thought. Over the years, paradigms and software engineering techniques have just changed constantly as new technologies come out. New ways of doing things are are brought into play. So it's ever evolving. It always has been. I mean, I come from a time where something as simple as as functions and subroutines were not around. Everything was top to bottom programming, and that, of course, changed radically as languages evolved to introduce more modularity. And I just followed things along, and it's almost hard to remember how I was designing systems back then, or applications, let's say, back then. It is hard to remember, not just because I'm older, but and I'm sure a lot of developers out there will agree with the statement that No, you don't design a system or an application the same way every single time. As soon as you finish it, you immediately think of things that you would have done differently or better, and then you save that for the next application.
Yeah, and what actually makes for you a great software architecture?
Say again?
Uh, what actually makes a great software architecture for you when we think in modern times?
Well, pretty much the topic that we're talking about today is the main one. I mean, there's other important topics. I mean, when you get into larger systems and you got to do service decomposition and break things apart in smaller portions, and with the introduction of microservices and stuff, those are all things that are important in designing a system. But the extensibility aspect of it, to me, it's near and dear to my heart. It's something that I got fascinated by, and I'm more than willing to tell you when in a minute, but, I got fascinated by when I first got introduced to that concept of plugins and modularity and stuff like that, and I think that is, to me, that's the foundation for a really well-architected system, because once things are extensible, they become maintainable, they become readable. You know what I mean? There's a lot of words that end with able that follow along. So it's kind of at the top of my list.
When we think a little bit about .NET developer, okay? Uh, I can see 3, yeah, 3 I don't know, 3 different kind of developers, yeah? There's one they say, "Okay, we are the .NET developers, we develop something that's work." And there it's all the other team, oh, I say teams, yeah, writing a clean code team and designing a good system team. What is the difference between writing clean code and designing a good system?
One right on top of the other. I don't think you can write clean code without designing a good system first. I mean, to me, systems are made up of parts, of components,
Mhm.
which fits well into the world of AI today, because you can actually spawn off some of that kind of writing to AI agents. But the and I don't think AI agents actually write clean code, to be honest with you. Um, but I'm not sure if I understand the question entirely. Um, the difference between repeat the question again for a second.
Yeah.
Try to lose my
What's the
train of thought.
difference between writing clean code and designing a good system?
Um, yeah, you can design a system without writing any code. I mean, to me, the design part of a project is, architecture and design kind of they blend in together. I do all that before I even write any code. I want to break it apart as much as I can, into the proper layers and components and sections and things like that, before I even write any code. That allows me to, when I get to the point of writing code, I'm writing smaller pieces, which allow you to maintain clean,
Mm.
a clean style much easier than if you jump right into a system without proper design, without architecture. Everybody out that's listening is going to agree. You can start coding right away, and without a proper design, your code's not going to end up clean. I don't care how good you are; it's just not going to work out that way.
Mm.
So the two things do have to, it's got to be a chicken before the egg, or whatever that saying is. It's got to you got to do your crawl before you walk is a better analogy. Do your design and architecture first, and then you can start. Then writing good code is going to be easier. Now, of course, this clean code is a very subjective term. What may be clean to me is not going to be clean to you. There are certain objective things that are yes or no. This is clean or this is not. But it all comes down to style too. And programmers are very personal with their style and with the way they write code and what they consider clean code. And not to say that one is wrong, one is right, but it can become a very argumentative topic, um, when you talk one programmer to another. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It
Um, Yeah, this is interesting, and I think a little bit about enterprise projects. What's the reason why they become difficult to maintain?
Uh, Probably if I had to nail, I mean, I'm sure there are many reasons and
Mhm.
everybody's got their own reasons for it, but if I had to nail one thing, it's probably that they're not designed in a way that allows enhancement and modification later in an easy way. And that's where the topic of extensibility comes in. At least
Um,
this has been my experience in my career. When I
yeah,
encounter a system that is tough to enhance and tough to maintain and modify, um, yeah, I throw my some I don't throw my hands up in the air and give up, but I'll throw my hands up in the air and curse somebody out.
and let me ask this a little bit different. When you joining an existing project, uh, what are the first warning signals that the architecture is in trouble?
Okay, the system does this, that, and the other. I don't like this part of it. What do I have to do to change this one little part of it? That's a pretty general question, but that question I think is how I would nail the question you just asked me. It's again alluding to extensibility. If I find that it's just a pain in the ass to change something, if the answer that I get is, "Oh, we would have to rewrite all of that," that already raises a red flag on how this was designed and architected to begin with.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, yeah, think development it's a project, and I thinking a little bit about can an architecture ever be finished? So this is just something what's make a project.
Repeat that again.
Yeah, yeah. I think a little bit about companies, and companies are doing development, and they treat it as a project. Um, can architecture ever be finished? So is it the right thinking, or it's the wrong thinking that software development
Yes,
then?
yes, and no, and that's always the tough question because there is such a thing as over architecting, but in my opinion, in my experience through my career, like everybody approaches it differently. Like I said, it's a very very personal way of doing things. But in my career, architecture it can evolve as well. I mean, you need to get a design and architecture of a software system to a certain point to get started on the coding, but that doesn't mean that you have to have the architecture and the design 100% done in order to start writing for it. Um, but a certain part of the architecture, how components are connected together and how things can be plugged in later, again, alluding to extensibility. I personally like to get that part done out of the way. And then as I start writing components for it, then as I start writing components for it, I may go back and revisit the architecture. And there's nothing wrong with revisiting. If you do it step by, it's more of an agile way of doing it. You know what I mean? Architecture is revisited just like component development is.
Yeah. Um, I think a little bit about so I'm more the 80% guy. I do the MVP and then I leave the projects and let's do the 20% that's nearly take the 100% of time. But how do you balance business deadlines against technical uh, excellence?
How do I balance business again? Say that again.
Yeah, business deadlines, against technical, excellence.
Hold on, I'm sorry. My phone kept going off and I didn't. I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that one more time.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. How do you balance business deadlines against technical, excellence?
Ha 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 ha. Deadlines, huh? I hate deadlines. I don't like deadlines. I don't work well with deadlines. No, I mean, I do all right. That's gonna be a case by case thing, man. It's gonna not only depend on what kind of architecture and design you put together, Um, but it's going to depend on the quality of your development staff, and also the type of companies you work of people you work for. I've worked for all types of bosses. Most of them have been very, very good. But I remember I was working for a company when I was living in Jersey
Mm,
that came around and told me that they were a very date oriented shop. Okay, I was, what exactly does that mean? That means when we see something we need to write, we set a date first as to when it needs to be done, and everything is based on that. Okay, well, I don't know anything about the system yet. I don't know what to design, what target, how to. All I know is that you want this by this date. That's all I know. Well, that's just the way we work. That was the answer I got. So I can't see excellence coming out of a project like that. It's a very case by case thing.
mm, um,
I'm not sure if that answers your
yeah,
question.
yeah. I'm also not the deadline fan. Uh, yeah, because yeah, you got the MVP and then you have it's running, but yeah, it's
But you know what? That's where having extensibility in mind
yeah.
comes in very important, because when I architect something, when I design, and notice I keep putting the word architect and design kind of together, because to me they're almost interjoined. But when I architect a system, I always have extensibility and modularity at the forefront, because as I do that, I can start writing things right away, and if I start writing parts of it right away, I can deliver in in an agile way. I can deliver in pieces. You know what I mean? You don't have to wait until the system is 100% done to deliver it. It's I mean, the essence of agile itself means you're constantly going back and changing and refactoring and stuff like that, both from a development perspective and from a business perspective. Um, so I don't I think that deliveries and dates are much better managed when things are broken apart into stages of delivery, just like we have stages of development. In your case, you said you work on minimum viable products first, right? That's the way you attack a product. That's fine. That to me is more of a proof of concept than anything else. I don't like to take a proof of concept product or delivery and turn it into the product. I literally keep that as a proof of concept. It's a very quick and dirty thing that I would put together just to show the technologies and the functionalities that would be available in a full blown system. Do you
Mm,
understand what I mean? The
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
it it's dangerous. I mean, I'm not criticizing you in any way, of course. An MVP is definitely necessary, and a minimum viable product is totally necessary in a lot of shops. I totally get that. Um, but I do feel you gotta be careful, because I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me that I deliver an MVP or a POC, a proof of concept product, and the boss says, "Oh, well, that's very close to what we need. So that means you can get the rest done in just a couple of weeks, right?" No, it doesn't work that way. This is literally just a proof of concept. It just happens to look really good, so don't mistake
yeah,
it for a polished finished product, because it's not.
yeah. I think especially in enterprise, and you have also other topics like security and so on.
Oh god,
Um,
yes.
and this is something you do. It's like I call it like a click dummy, and yeah, the guys or the sea level or they don't understand what happened and why does it look so fine and does a little bit of work, but yeah, there's a lot of other stuff you have to do. And I
Absolutely.
think yeah, this is one of the biggest misconceptions yeah, the leadership have um, on software architecture. But what is the biggest misconceptions developers have about software architecture from your perspective?
The biggest misconception developers have about architecture? Um, I'm not really sure. I've never given a question like that any kind of thought. Um I mean, I'm inclined to immediately say every it's gonna be different for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, my personal one, um, I don't even know if it's a misconception. I mean, I have a pretty good idea of what I want in an architecture, what I wanna see. Um, a lot of times I just don't see that. So I'm not sure if I understand the root of the question or how to properly answer it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then it's okay. I think a little bit about Uh, I see. Of I have more to do with the leadership, and I don't there. I understand what misconceptions they have. Yeah. So I think it could also be possible developers have some misconceptions about software architecture, but yeah, we're not that it's fine.
Well, I think when your team of architects or when your architect is completely disconnected from the developers, when it's not the same person. See, I'm used to doing all the work myself. I've been a one man shop for a very, very long time, and I kind of like it that way. Um, but I mean, I have worked on teams before. I've never worked on a team where the architecture is that separated from the development enough to cause any kind of misconceptions, but I think I can see that happening if those 2 sides are very, very separated because, there's a lot of people that think that architecture is completely separated from the technology, and it's not. It's decoupled from the technology quite a bit, but it's not entirely separated, and I think there can be a big disconnect when you got a team of architects or an architect that designs something that, the tech stack that is going to be used to write it, may not be able to handle. You know what I mean? Or maybe the staff or the skill level of the development staff may not be able to handle. And I think that could introduce clashes and misconceptions and things like that. I think those two sides really need to stay in close communication as close as possible if they are not the same person. In my case, it's always been the same person or somebody that I've worked very, very closely with and will continue to work closely with on an ongoing basis. That communication lines need to be that communication line needs to be maintained open during the entire time.
Yeah. I have look a little bit about your publications and your writings, and there's one topic also we have it in the headline. It's extensive extensibility. Why has extensibility become I say one of your favorite architectural the topics?
That okay, so that's where the real nerd in me comes out, right? Because when I got started in .NET, this was obviously back in .NET 1.0, and I was fascinated by the way web forms worked. You know, before that, I was doing classic ASP
Mhm.
development using Microsoft Transaction Server as the object broker, and then of course a lot of EB6 components in the background. Um, and classic ASP's got VB script built into it, or JavaScript built into it, and that's how you generate the HTML within it or make it as dynamic as we were able to make it back then. This was obviously before the days of XML HTTP, later to be known as AJAX.
Yeah.
But when I got started in web forms, which was the web platform that ASP.NET offered at that time, the only one, um, I I took to it, with a lot of with I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I was I took to the concept of writing web controls, um, quite easily, and I was fascinated by it. That became a topic that I did a lot of speaking about and a lot of writing about, is writing custom web controls. And web controls, are a point of extensibility because they're just, they're modular pieces of a website or a web page. Web controls don't have to be something as small as a text box and a label and a button. I was writing web controls that were full blown components, like little mini forms that can be plug and played into multiple different forms. And I found that fascinating, and fun. And then later came ASP.NET MBC, and I was very curious as to how that was gonna differ, and, that was easy to learn. I was a seasoned programmer by then, but I started researching and looking into exactly how that worked because it wrote on top of ASP.NET, right? Now, at that point, I had a very clear understanding that ASP.NET does not equal web forms. ASP.NET is the architecture and the framework on top of web forms, and when I started digging around and reverse engineering a lot of the stuff in web forms and how web forms and MVC worked, it became very apparent that ASP.NET is the underlying architecture on both web forms and ASP.NET. And MVC. So then I researched into, okay, so how exactly does ASP.NET take a request, a URL, and turn it into the eventual output, which is just a bunch of HTML, right? There's a lot of things in the middle there, and that's where I learned the concept of a pipeline and plugging things into a pipeline, and in reverse engineering and reading and learning a lot about this stuff. Um, I learned exactly how a request is step by step turned into a web page in web forms, and then I learned how that happens in MVC, and
Mm,
all of it happens on the same pipeline, on the same
mm,
railroad track, if you will, right? And all Microsoft did was unplug some of the parts that turn a request from a web form into HTML and plug in other things to handle the request and turn it into a web page using an MVC kind of architecture. And finding out how that worked was one of the most fascinating and enlightening moments that I had. I learned how to write, HTTP modules and HTTP handlers and all that kind of stuff. And it fascinated me, and I just really got into how would I apply this same kind of technique, the same kind of architecture, to another system, to something I can if I'm designing something for a client, for a customer. I was always doing consulting. And I got that's how I got into it, and to this day, that's how I approach systems, you know? Maybe not literally a backbone like ASP.NET, but a backbone and pipeline kind of mentality. How can I design the system where, everything has to go from point A to point Z. So to get from point A to point Z, what steps do I take, and can I make these steps where I can remove one and put in another one to either change the way something works, looks, or behaves later on. And that's a very broad description, but I think you make it the point. You know what I mean? Writing modular stuff like that, where if a client, to me, it became incredibly important after a delivery because I saw a client like the system I delivered. They have no idea how things work behind the covers. Of course, they never do. But then they said, "Oh, this is very cool. But this little piece right here, can we change this to do this?" And then I would turn around and have a change like that very, very quickly. And of course, they would be very happy. And the work was easier for me because it would literally be just unplugging one part that I did and putting in something else and not changing any of the underlying architecture or framework that that orchestrates the entire thing. And that turned into just a really love for designing extensible software, and I got into different kinds of extensibility patterns. And I did a Pluralsight course on developing extensible software where I go over several different patterns and give examples and everything. And it became a really cool way of writing systems because it not only was cool to deliver it and see the client happy that I was able to deliver in minimal time and make changes in minimal time, but it was rewarding for me. It actually bettered the way I write code and the way I architect it. Back to the clean code that you were talking about, I found myself writing cleaner code because now I was managing smaller parts of code. It's always easy to go clean when you're managing small,
mm.
you know? and would just it just my I kept evolving from there, and that's just the way that I do things today.
Mm, this yeah, this was a really good or really a good overview. When you have to expensibility design to explain in simple words, I say to a 12-year-old boy or girl, how will you explain it?
Ha 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 ha. Oh boy, yeah, that's like asking ChatGPT to, to write the show me the US Declaration of Independence so a five-year-old can understand it, right? No, but it's a good question. I've never really thought about it like that because I'm used to talking to developers, not five-year-olds. But it's all I mean, if I can change it if I can introduce them to that world using analogies that they understand, I guess it would be building blocks.
Mhm.
I give them building blocks. You know, build a castle out of these building blocks. They would build a castle for me. And then I say,
Mm,
"Well, I don't like the tower of that castle because the princess can't come out of the window. Change that the top of that tower." Well, they don't gotta redo the entire castle. They just gotta take the tower off and put a different kind of tower on it.
mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that would
yeah,
be the best analogy I can give to a little
yeah. I love bricks, and yeah, I understand it with my 12-year-old mind.
in my
um,
world, I'm a big Lego fan. I build a lot of Legos. So in my world, that would be the equivalent of Lego, right? I don't like the way the front of this building comes out, so I'm gonna unplug it and put something else on there.
yeah, yeah. Lego is also it's also a great topic, but yeah, um,
Don't get me started, man. I can talk about Legos all day.
um,
Guaranteed that a woman will never talk to me again, of course.
yeah, yeah. I have buy another not Lego, but also bricks. Star Destroyer for 2 weeks. My girlfriend also not so willing to talk to me actually. If she sees a package with 20,000 bricks, but yeah, yeah. That's it's yeah. When you get a nerd, you get a nerd.
Yep.
um, when should developers design for extension, and is there also cases when they should do it not, or they shouldn't yet?
I understood when should a developer design for repeat that again. I wanna make sure I get the
Yeah.
question correctly.
When should developers design for extensions, and they shouldn't when they don't do it?
I think that the size of the system is probably the best way to answer that question. You're not gonna or the more time you spend on when you design something for modularity and extensibility, it's gonna take a little more time. Make no mistake about that. So if the system that you're eventually needing to deliver is very, very small, it's a quick and dirty application, you don't need to it would be over engineering to go through all the thought process of how would I modularize this and make it extensible. It's small enough where it'd be easy to maintain. I think the size of the system is very relevant as it's clear that what has to be delivered is a large scale
Oh,
system. Then it becomes more important, and then the minute you ask yourself the questions, okay, where do you see this changing in the future or being enhanced in the future? If there are several answers to that question, that's a giveaway that we need to put some thought into making sure this is a well-designed, extensible, and modular system. Now, you may not always get the honest answer to that question because I'm sure a lot of developers out there have encountered given a task by a boss and them saying, and if they ask, well, what about this case here? And then the answer is, oh, don't worry about that. It only happens once a year.
mm,
Well, to me, when something happens once a year, I got to account for it like if it happens every week. That's just the way I refuse to leave something out because it only happens once a year, because that once a year is gonna be a pain in the ass when that comes back. And if there's a lot of those things like that, then the modular and extensible design needs to be considered as early in the game as possible. So it's very relevant to it's very related to the size of the system that you're putting together.
Mm,
Or let me add to that,
yeah.
or what is the potential of this system, which is now very small, it's just a little application right now, where do you see this going in the future?
Mm,
And again, the honesty of the answer is gonna be very relevant because most of the time you're not gonna get an honest answer from a boss because they just want it delivered quickly. But, when they come back and say, "Oh, remember that system you designed 6 months ago? That little application? The crew, the people that I gave it to like it. They want it turned into this, this, and that." And now all of a sudden it just became something big.
mm,
So those are the questions that I tend to ask, and like I said, I don't always get an honest response to it.
mm. Yeah, you say design patterns. So, which design patterns do you relate most, and which patterns are, say, overused?
Overused. Well, as far as the first part of that question, the design patterns that to me in my design, in my type of development, most of the extensibility designs that I do all stem from a strategy pattern or something similar to the strategy pattern or something that is derived from it. To me, the strategy pattern is at the heart of embracing abstractions. The whole point of extensibility is to be able to plug one thing in and plug in another one. And that kind of plug in mentality is only going to work if the backbone that you're plugging into is going to have the same interface, the same way of talking to an old component as it does to a new component. And that's abstraction. And that's at the heart of the strategy pattern. To me, that's at the heart of extensibility. Everything from there um, everything can progress from there. There are other patterns like the chain of responsibility pattern, which is kind of at the heart of that combined with strategy is at the heart of what I call the external events pattern. Um, a lot of people are probably questioning what the hell did I just mean by external events. Let me put it in a way that .NET developers can understand because it's a pattern that I actually love and I use quite a bit. It's not really one of the 23 Goff patterns, but it's the exact same pattern that ASP.NET uses when it gives you HTTP modules.
Mm,
So the pattern, for those of you listening, if you're familiar with iHTTP module and how to
mm,
write an HTTP module, that's pretty much at the heart of how ASP.NET turns a request into a bunch of HTML, whether it's in web forms or whether it's in MVC or whether it's an API.
mm,
Web API is the exact same pipeline as MVC and web forms. It starts with the request. The only difference is that it's delivering JSON data instead of HTML. So
yeah,
the different points on the railroad track are very different, but the interface behind the scenes is gonna be the same. Well, I can give you a mini ASP.NET framework example. I can deliver a mini one. It would be useless because, of course, I'd be reinventing the wheel, but I can do a mini one to show you how something like that would work by using the same pattern that Microsoft used, which is the HTTP module pattern. It's one of my favorite patterns, and I tend to use that quite a bit. The latest system that I just delivered to my last customer use that extensively. If you wanted to write a plugin for this system, here's the interface and the events, and these are these are the events you can tap into, and I call it the external event pattern because the host, the backbone system, is going to be checking for event subscriber and calling an event, but the writing of that event comes from a plugin that you add later in a different assembly, not from a hardwired, very strongly coupled event. It's a very loosely coupled thing, which is why I tend to call it the external events.
mm,
But that's that 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 the which that and the strategy pattern, those are the main ones that I base things on. Everything is based on abstraction. When it comes to extensibility and plugins and modules, it's all based on abstraction. If you're not familiar, I mean, if you're not comfortable with the concept of abstraction, it's something that you need to get comfortable with. Anybody that's done developer dependency injection understands abstraction very well because it's at the root of that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we have a lot of buzzwords now, but can you a little bit buzzword was the wrong word, but we have plugins, events, dependency injections, and also interface. How did all this work together?
Well, I mean, that all depends on what it is that you're putting together, really. I mean, dependency injection is based on the whole concept of abstraction, which in the world of .NET, abstractions mean interfaces. They mean interfaces and abstract classes too, but primarily interfaces. Um, so that's how DI works together with interfaces. That it's based on that. It's at its very root. Same thing with plugins. If I'm going to write a plugin, um, it's I have to embrace the abstraction because my main system is going to be calling a plugin, and the whole idea of an extensible plugin is that it doesn't know what that plugin it's going to do. It just knows what it has available to do. The methods and the properties that it has available to it, and what the implementation behind the scenes is. It has no idea.
Mm,
That's at the very heart of doing modularity and extensibility. Um, I think I might have answered your question, or I might have gone off on a different tangent. You tell me, did I address that properly?
yeah, yeah, really, really good. Yeah. Um, I think a little bit about yeah, we talked a lot about extensibility. Can you share an example where extensibility saved an entry product?
Yeah. Let me see if I can think of a good one, just recent, and one that's fresh in my head from the last system that I did. Um, let's see. Okay, you mentioned in my intro, you mentioned the transcriber system that I wrote. I wrote a system to do live transcriptions, live transcriptions from phone calls in a call center. So literally, as the phone call is happening, they see the live transcription on the screen. Now, we've
Mm,
all seen that on Zoom, Google Meet. They all have live transcription built into it. But I had to do it on a custom system because this client had their own UI, their own, that they use to manage the call center. It wasn't using anybody else's UI that had built-in transcription. So I had to do this myself, and this was before AI was even around, to be honest with you. So I learned how to use Microsoft's cognitive services to do a transcription, and I wrote a transcription system that worked beautifully. Now, as it was used, let me correct that. As I was writing it, I try to think ahead. Now, I was with this customer for 15 years, this one client. So I got to know them very, very, excuse me. Phew. I got to know them very well and was able to always anticipate what I think they may be asking for in the future. Which a lot of people can't do that with short term customers, but I was with them, including myself, but I was with them for long enough where I kind of knew how they think, and I was writing the system, and a lot of things popped into my mind that as the transcription is coming through and the agent, the customer service agent, is watching this happen and seeing the transcription between their customer and their own voice, um, I can see different things being asked for to make their job significantly simpler. Um, the two that came to mind, the first one that came to mind is the ability to search the knowledge base, the company's knowledge base. And I knew that would eventually come up because in talking to some of the agents, they told me that that's actually one of the processes they use. As they're talking to a customer, they're on another monitor searching the knowledge base, the company knowledge base, to see if that customer's problem has come up in the past, and is there an immediate solution? So that was one thing. Later on, when AI came into play, we got the ability to um to use ChatGPT, and I learned how to use the ChatGPT API. So think about it. You got two things now that can share the abstraction. So I think this is actually a pretty decent example. You got a conversation from a you got two conversations, two streams. You got the agent and you got the customer, right? Now I'm only interested in the customer conversation for the purposes of the answer to your question. So I got the customer explaining things over the phone, and I'm transcribing this. So I have this in writing. So I want to take this now and automatically send it somewhere for some kind of processing. Now, think of how abstract I just worded that, okay? I wanna send this transcript or maybe a sentence or 2 or whatever. Part of this transcript, I wanna send it somewhere for processing, and I wanna have results of that processing come back so the agent can see it on another monitor or, somewhere else on their screen. Well, that, um, very abstract description is what I took into consideration when I was designing and writing the transcription system. Because later, much later, I was able to what I did is that I put in a hook. In extensibility terms, we say hooks. I put in a hook so that I can put a plugin at this point later. Every time that a sentence or a couple of sentences came in on the customer stream, I would take the words of that sentence, the text, and I would very abstractly send that out somewhere. Now, I didn't have any somewhere to send it out to, but that's what I was coding for. In an abstract way, I'm sending that part of the conversation somewhere that later on I'm going to plug what that somewhere is. And I delivered the transcription system, and it worked very nicely. And sure as shit, the can I say that? Huh. Uh, sh- sure as hell, the customer came back. That my boss came back with, how do we get the FAQ, the frequently asked questions, the knowledge base, involved in this? And I knew that was going to come up. So the first use that I had for that hook, that plugin point, that's what a hook is a plugin point, an extensibility point is I took that text that was coming little by little from the customer, and I send it to the knowledge base and see what comes back. And if something came back, then I displayed it on the screen, and the agent saw it, the customer service agent saw it, customer service representative, but the customer actually did not, just the agent did. So the agent was able to read results from a knowledge base in real time as the customer was speaking to them because of a plugin point that I set aside ahead of time so that I can use for the knowledge base search later on. Later, I modified or I added another extensibility plugin where I would send the customer text to ChatGPT and turn it into a question of sorts and see what comes back. So that's kind of a rough overview on how I did implemented something like that into one of my systems, but it worked out really, really well. And you put a switch behind this, you can turn it off and on, right? So if the agent doesn't care about the knowledge base, they don't want to see all this stuff come back. They just click it off, and now I'm no longer sending the text over, but I can turn it back on at any time.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
yeah, that's makes it's really really good explaining. I want also a little bit talk about enterprise platforms. You are designing SDKs, communication platforms, automation systems. Where do these projects begins?
Where did the project begin? Um, Usually from a bad dream that the boss had. No, seriously, I mean, that's how it works, right? I can't tell you how many things I've done for my customer over the 15 years that I've been with him, where I get approached with, "Hey, this occurred to me last night. I thought about doing this and then this. I'm not sure how we can do this, but it would be very, very cool. So figure out a way to do it." And it was a great job because of that. I was given a lot of freedom, a lot of leeway. But how to repeat the original question again. I wanna make sure
Yeah, yeah.
I stay focused.
Where do you start with, or how do projects begin? This was my questions from bad dreams from your boss.
What well, obviously, the main question is what exactly are you looking for? But the one that I always I twist that question into what do you envision doing when this is done and delivered and working perfectly? What is your what is your vision? You know, I if the customer can tell me, I'd like to be able to come in and do this and have this returned to me, and this is the ideal situation. That's the primary thing because I dig deeper from that point. I don't like to start any kind of application design or architecture without knowing what the desired result from a customer's perspective is, because that can lead to mistakes.
Yeah,
The latest thing that I did for my company was automate a series of manual accounting processes that would occur at 4:30 in the morning, and they were all done manually. And it would have to be done that early because it has to be done when bank information on credit cards and checks comes in, and it has to be done by a certain time. So that was the time that they would do it at 4:30 in the morning. And they were looking for a way to automate this. So I asked that question, what do what do you envision in an ideal situation? What are you looking to happen? Obviously, the first answer was we don't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning anymore. So now, okay, now let me walk me through what the manual process is. And that's actually very key when I design something, especially when I'm doing automation. Walk me in detail as much as you can what the manual process to doing this so I can get a good understanding on how I'm going to automate it. If something can be done manually, more often than not, I can have it done automatically. It's I know that's very vague and it's very broad, but that's at the essence of what I ask when I'm getting ready to design a new project. What are you looking for? What is your ideal outcome of what you would like to see when all this is done? If this was done tomorrow, how do you envision yourself using it? And then now walk me through how do you do it now? Because that will allow me to isolate possible ways that you could be doing it better, not to tell somebody how to do their job when it's outside the realm of computers, but it helps me understand things step by step, so then when I go into automating it, I know exactly what I'm getting into and what things I have to look for. A good analogy to this that's not in the world of .NET, and I deal with this all the time, is I have a Tesla. And my Tesla here in the States, we're allowed to use full self-drive. I know that you in Stockholm are not, which you have no idea what you're missing, man, because you get
yeah,
addicted. You get it's like I have a chauffeur, you know, it's true. But, you always people that get into my car and and they 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 get fascinated by how well this works, and they ask me how it works. Now, I can't tell you exactly how full self-drive works step by step, but I can generalize how I would approach it. Now, I'm in nowhere near qualified to write something, a full self-drive for a vehicle that's gonna go out on the road. But think about it, when you're doing something, when you're driving, you gotta get from here to there, and what decision tree are you going to undertake? What decision points are you going to undertake to get from here to there? How, like I just changed lanes. What made me change that lane? Well, I looked to my left and I noticed it was clear and it was clear up ahead of me. So I changed left. Okay. I write that down. That's what an automated system is going to do. Um, that I stopped at that red light. Why did I stop at that red light? Well, because I saw the light and it turned red and I stopped because I know that's the law. Well, I write that down. That's what my automation system is gonna do, and that's in a very, very simplistic way what a full self-drive system like Tesla or Waymo or any of those are doing. They're making decisions, you know, based on the based on what do they gotta do to make that decision? they gotta look around and see what's around and then take it from there step by step. Obviously, we look at one direction at a time where a car like mine looks at 9 different directions at a time, so things are done much faster. But that kind of decision making, what will it take to get from A to Z in your system, in your accounting system or whatever? Give me as much detail as you can so then I can try to design at that point or duplicate from there in a more automated fashion. And that's typically my approach to something. Some clients like that. A lot of people do not. They're like, well, why do I got to spend this amount of time with you? That's what we hired you for. Well, no, do you really want me to take this into my own hands and decide how you're gonna do it? The whole point of you hiring me is that I wanna do it the way you want, you know what I mean? Um, I'll write it the way I want, but I want the outcome, the end game to be what you are looking for.
Mm, yeah, awesome. So for this was a really, really, really great session, and I think we have to do another uh, session because for another topics. This was really, really, I really enjoy it. Um, let's jump into the rapid fire round. I only give you short questions, and you give a short answer.
Okay,
So,
alright.
rest or
And
graph?
I just wanna make sure that everybody out there knows that I have no idea what you're gonna say.
Yeah,
No clue whatsoever. You're gonna
yeah,
completely take me by surprise here, and I know I'm not gonna like it, but go ahead.
yeah. Rest or graph QL?
Say that again?
Rest or graph QL?
I would say rest because I am not a GraphQL person. I've had minimum exposure to GraphQL. It's cool. I kinda think it's pretty neat. To me, it kinda brings back memories of the old OData days. Remember OData?
Mm,
In REST, we have OData in Microsoft. GraphQL kinda reminds me of that because you can do querying and everything right from a request, but I'm much more comfortable in standard REST,
mm.
as most .NET people are, I believe.
Clean architecture or vertical slice?
Say that again?
Clean architecture or vertical slice?
I don't think the 2 are mutually exclusive. I think a clean architecture can result in many vertical slices.
Mm, okay. Azure Functions or containers?
Functions or containers.
Yeah.
You said Azure Functions?
Yeah.
Oh, 2 completely different things, though. I mean, containers can contain full-blown apps. Azure Functions are just that. They're smaller, smaller functions to do, whether it's the job of a microservice or an even smaller job than that.
A C sharp feature you could live without.
A C# feature I cannot live without. I can't believe that I'm gonna say this, because I didn't feel this way at the beginning, but I've gotten very, very, accustomed to making async code much easier, because I used to be a big user of the begin end pattern in the old days. My very first magazine article was written about the begin end pattern, and of course, async await replaced all of that. And at first, I was trying to figure out, okay, is this being overused? Am I using it in the right place? And now, most things that I do are going to be async enabled in one way or another. So, if I have to give you one answer, it would probably be that without giving it more thought.
Mm. Most underrated .NET feature.
Most underrated?
Yeah.
Uh, most un most underrated .NET feature. Um, Extension methods.
Okay. Um, tabs or spaces?
Say that again?
Tabs or spaces?
What's the first word? I heard spaces. What's
Uh,
the word?
tabs or spaces?
Taps, T-A-P-S?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
Okay. That um, what's your favorite drink when you're coding?
My favorite what?
Favorite drink when you're coding? Coffee, energy drink, Red Bull, tea.
Actually, I have it right in front of me right now. Uh, the only soda I drink is, It's I don't drink anything with aspartame in it. So I drink a diet soda from a company here in the States called Zavia,
Okay.
which is sweetened with a natural herb sweetener called stevia. I don't know how popular that is overseas,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm that and water, to be honest with you. I'm a 1 cup of coffee per day person. I've never been a huge coffee drinker. I drink it because I have a physical addiction to caffeine, and I'll get a headache if I don't have 1 cup a day.
AI coding, yes or no?
Now I'm gonna say yes, and I don't know how controversy that answer is gonna be. Can I elaborate on that answer a little bit? Can I
Yeah.
give you more detail? So, I I was one of those that at the beginning was not really worried that AI is gonna replace my job because I've been doing this for 40 years. But it's just gotten really, really good, really, really good. And I've now taken the stance that if you can't beat it, join it, right? I don't fight with AI anymore. But I use it. I use it extensively. And I think that AI still can't fully design or architect a system based on client requirements the way I could or the way a human can. But once you got all that architecture, things that we spoke of during the last hour out of the way, doing the component part of it, the small pieces of it, I have no problem um, farming that out to AI, just in the interest of getting it done quickly. I try to keep the requests of AI that are going to be code oriented as small as possible because it keeps things maintainable and it gives me less to check over because I still have to check a lot of this stuff over. I find AI making a lot of mistakes here and there. So I still want to check it over. But if I can put components together quickly, I'm all for it. Who wouldn't be all for it? I think you'd be a fool to fight that and to do it yourself, because once a customer or a company catch wind of the fact that I could have done this a lot faster, they're going to question why I took the slow route, and I don't want that to come into question. So I'm for it now. If it's done the right way, if it's used the right way, I am in favor of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Then I say, Miguel, thank you so much for joining me today. I think, yeah, I had so much more questions, but we are a little bit running out of time. But I think this was extreme good overview, especially what's the topic about great architecture and accessibility design. Yeah, it's so hot today. Yeah, so I would say thank you and all the listeners find your links and infos in the show notes and yeah, have a great day and
Let me just give one last piece of information for those that are listening. I did a Pluralsight course called Developing Extensible Software that I think of all the courses that I did, it's the one that is most relevant today. And the Pluralsight in their infinite wisdom, and I use that very sarcastically, has retired the course. They've retired all my courses because they feel that they're dated. This particular course, I don't feel it's dated because it's architecture based, so how could it be dated? But even retired courses are still available on Pluralsight. They just don't come up in the immediate list. But if anybody has a Pluralsight subscription and they search my name, the course you're looking for is called Developing Extensible Software, and I think you'll find it quite enjoyable. It was a lot of fun to put together, and it will give you a lot of details into the stuff that we've talked about today.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Then normally I give you the last words. Um,
Well, those were my last words, man. Thank you everybody for listening.
yeah. So thank you so much for spending the time with me, and yeah, have a great rest day. Thank you.
You got it.
Bye.